Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and greetings. I feel like I should sing Happy, Happy Halloween, Halloween, but I won't. But I'm tempted. Today, October 27th, we are talking about the power to create a better world. Finishing off our theme for the month, Power to the People, and what it means to embody this power. Today, we are talking about standing in our authentic power allows us, it gives us the ability to stand for and as truth. It allows us to be so strongly an embodiment of and for principle that we are clear, we are kind, we are compassionate, we are unmovable, regardless of what's going on in the world or around us. Doesn't matter. And so this week we ask, what does a world that works for all look like, feel like, smell like, taste like? What is it? And what aspect of creating that is mine to do? Breathe. Because today, this finishing off this concept, we are going to unpack some of the often referenced quotes and passages that people tend to use for metaphysical malpractice and such, spiritual bypass and such. So, what does it mean to have the power, to be the power to create a better world? Well, as Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith says, be for something and against nothing. Yes, and there's fine print because it's easy. I have seen and I have heard, I have been a witness to people using that quote for spiritual bypass, for metaphysical gaslighting and metaphysical malpractice. And when he says it, that's not what he's referring to. He is not inviting us into that space. But there are others who do what people do with the Bible and other sacred texts. They cherry pick and they make it fit and mold wherever it is that they are, instead of how does this passage, how do these words invite me into greater evolutionary and prophetic ways of showing up to create a world that works for all. So let's dive a little deeper, because I've also seen people do the same thing with Ernest Holmes, who said, find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, and an exalted human being. I hear exactly what he's saying. I understand exactly what he's saying, because I understand who he was talking to, the era, the audience, the state of mind at that time. I understand completely. But for us today, right here and right now, we need to remix this. So be someone who is bound by principle in what you are for, to such a degree that what you are against is not a myopic obsession. When you can condemn another's behavior without condemning the person themselves, you will find a new energy, a new state of consciousness flowing in, through, and as you. And that is what gives you the ability to change the world. Be someone who is. Okay, what? Oh, what does this look like in applicable practice. Yeah, good question, because that's what is important. How do we apply it? Well, we understand how to apply it already when we look at how we respond to other things in the world. But when it comes to spirituality, we tend to segregate and separate and isolate and Tupperware for the sake of convenience. But we already understand how this operates because anyone who has ever seen a condemned building understands what it means to condemn something without needing to also condemn the people. For example, we need not find the people who used to live here. We need not find the people who built this and be like, "Ooh, you are a bad person. I condemn you." We understand that the structure, the building is condemned. The structure is declared unfit for human occupancy or use. And so we treat the building, we treat the structure accordingly. So why don't we do the exact same thing when it comes to the various other things in the world that we are for or against? Because when we start having this conversation, be for something and against nothing, we make it sound like, oh, you're just supposed to be this Pollyanna who is positive all the time, kumbaya, kumbaya. Don't be against anything. Be for. People will quote Mother Teresa, who said, I will not show up at your protest of the war, but if you have a rally for peace, I'll be there. So does that mean she sat around waiting for the rally for peace and spoke out or spoke up or showed out? Not at all. Because if I'm not going to do this and I'm waiting for that, in the meantime, what am I doing? And people have used her quote to say, no, you're supposed to be for. Do not protest. Do not resist, because what you resist persists. Oh, so if you buy new cookware, you're not looking for the ones that resist sticking? You're not looking for, and you don't want firefighters to have flame resistant clothing? It's okay to use the words when it's referring to linguistic convenience, I understand. But when we get so obsessed with the linguistic convenience, this concept of for and against, we get confused. So what does it mean to be for and against? For something and against nothing, or whatever that means, whatever. So let's look at a couple of things that show up. Sex trafficking. Are you against it? Okay, so you may not speak out against it, but what are you for? Are you against book bans or are you for book bans? Are you against gun safety or are you for gun safety? Whatever. The general concept for each of us to sit with and identify. But the number one thing is, are there people right now who are experiencing the pains of mass shootings? Whether you are against it or not, whether you are for it or not, which I know the answer to that is not, because you have no business watching me if you are for mass shootings. So we go with the concept of, well, you don't want them to happen. Okay, so you're against them, but you may not say that. Okay, fine. So what are you for? You're for effective gun safety. Okay, cool. But when this other thing is happening, what do? Do you sit around and, twiddle your metaphysical thumbs waiting for this other thing? Or do you go ahead and get bandages? Do you go ahead and call 911? Do you go ahead and show up and visit? Do you go ahead and speak to? What do you do with any of these? If you are not for Christian nationalism, what are you doing to ensure that, because that's not a world that works for all, what are you doing to ensure, as it says, I declare Christian nationalism unfit for occupancy or use by anyone? And so I deconstruct it in order to construct that which in fact is fit for occupancy and use by everyone. I declare homomisia and transmisia unfit for occupancy or use in a world that works for all. And so I deconstruct it in order to construct a world that works for all, in which equity and justice, etc., are the norm. What does it mean? See, because it's easy to throw out a quote, be for something and against nothing. And yet, once again, when it comes to the regular everyday things like football, we understand what it means to be for or against. We understand it. We practice it. Because when you are watching your team, are you more for your team winning? Or are you more for the other team losing? Where is the main focus of your energy? When you are playing, you are on the football team, you are on the baseball team. Are you more engaged in ensuring that they lose or that your team scores? Now, I know that there are times when it's so close that your number one goal is we just need to make sure they don't score. I got that. And that's part of the system of strategy. I got that. I got that. But in the grand scheme of the overall vision, if someone were to say, you are the star player or the captain of the team, what is it that you desire? What is your vision for the team? Yes, hello. I'm the quarterback, and my vision for the for the team is that they lose. Huh? So, what is the vision for you and your team? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That they lose. That makes what? The vision is a world that works for all. The vision is okay. If that's the vision, then how are we bringing about the mission? How are we engaging and embodying the values of, and how are we bringing it into manifestation? Because if we only focus on one thing, then we lose sight of. So it's more a practice of clarity and awareness. Socrates says, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Now he says, focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but you recognize it. Because how do you know you're not fighting? You have to be able to identify what it is in order to make sure that build the new. But you have to know what is new to build new. You have to know what is old to shift from into. So there has to be a level of clarity. How do I focus? How do I bring my vision into focus, clarity, awareness in order to do this? Well, one important thing is we have been lied to, and we continue in many ways to continue to perpetuate the lie. Now, the lie you are asking is what? The lie of either or. Because you can have both and. You can have the donut and the apple. It doesn't have to be either or. In general conversation. Now, if there's some other medical thing going on, yeah, that's a different matter. I'm saying in the general sense of, and for linguistic convenience, we believe it has to be either you're for or you're against, but not both and. I hear you, and generally I understand the concept, because this young woman, she can't do both and roads. And I mean, unless she can do a really long split, at some point she has to choose. I get the concept. I do. And yet, you can be against or opposed to war and be for peace, against racism and for racial and ethnic equity and justice, against drug addiction, the toxic capitalism that is involved in drug selling and manufacturing and drug abuse and all of that. And you can be for health and well-being. We need not vilify, as Reagan and many other folks did, the drug addict with the war on drugs, because it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on people, and predominantly the people who were addicted to and what we would call abusers of drugs, rather than getting them the health and well-being, mental health and well-being, medical health and well-being that they needed. We fought them and imprisoned them and warehoused them because our focus was, our energy was towards this one thing and not that. So you can be against the addiction, the abuse, the finances involved in it, the corruption involved in it, and you can be for greater health and well-being for individuals. You can be against ineffective gun legislation, and you can be for more effective and safer gun legislation. You can be against sexism, gender bias, and you can be for gender equity, gender justice. Now, the main question is, in what way are you focusing, embodying, and using your energy? Because if we're not really engaging in it simply because we are spewing platitudes and quotes about what to be for and what not to be against and what, then we're not doing any good in the world. To such a degree that I would dare say that we may actually be part of the problem and enabling greater illness and disease. For example, if an infection comes into your body, are there not certain cells and systems that immediately go on defense to block the virus or the infection? That when the immune system is compromised, all manner of illness and disease can attack the body? And so if white blood cells or whatever sat back and said, we're not against this virus, we're more for this. So the virus comes in and it's like, we're not against it, we're for this. And so it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Well, the virus is going to spread. because we have nothing to defend. We're not against it. We're for this. So what happens to the human body? Right? So we understand the concept. Our inaction and inactivity doesn't create a world that works for all. Any more than if there is a house, a building that is condemned, we understand the concept of demolishing it. But one can demolish what is no longer desired or no longer safe while also keeping the vision, the mission, the purpose, the values, and the action on what is being built. Even in the deconstruction of the building, the deconstruction, the energy, etc., the actual conviction, vision, energy is on what is being reconstructed or constructed. We tear this down, but we've already got in mind the blueprints for what's going up in its place. We can deconstruct the systems. We can deconstruct the paradigms. We can deconstruct the behaviors of a world that works better for some and not for all, while also constructing a new system in which the systems, the paradigms, the behaviors and actions truly do operate now as the creative force that perpetuates, that nurtures, that supports the experience of a world that works for all. Truly. It doesn't have to be either or. You either tear the building down or you build it up. What? We understand how this works. But are we ready, willing, and able to apply it is the question. Jane Goodall and Douglas Abrams offer us the indomitable human spirit is that quality in us that makes us tackle what seems impossible and never give up. It may seem impossible to create a world that works for all, but because of the indomitable human spirit, which is the power of God, it is the life. There is only one life, and that life is God. And that life is this indomitable spirit showing up in, through, and as all of us. And so when this, whatever it is, peace on earth, goodwill to all, seems impossible, we tackle it. We never give up because we know through the power of creation, the power that is God, the power that is your power, my power, our power, we can change it. The human mind created it. Human emotions created it. Then the human mind and the human heart and emotions can uncreate it and create something new called peace, equity, justice, etc. As Dr. Angela Davis says, I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I will not accept racism, sexism. I will not accept it. So rather than, I am changing the things I cannot accept. I am changing the systems because I cannot accept them. I will not be complicit in their perpetuation. And so I am changing what you call impossible, I see as possible, probable, inevitable. I am changing the things that I cannot and will not accept. What are you changing? What are you willing to no longer accept, but to change in order to manifest and create a world that truly works for all? A steadfast determination to attain some purpose, the letting go of all that opposes it, a complete reliance upon the law of good, and an unqualified trust in spirit. This is real power. What is our purpose? A world that works for all. What is our vision? What is our purpose? What is our mission? And do we have a steadfast determination? You say impossible, I say let's tackle it and make it possible. Are we willing to let go of the idea that what is opposing it is more powerful? That which is war opposes that which is peace. The concept of war opposes. So which one are we focusing our energy more on? There will always be war for as long as there are humans. Then I'm focusing more on what is the opposition. I am focusing more on this war on drugs instead of letting that go and focusing on the health and well-being of people. Are we willing to let go of our addiction to the opposition? We understand that it's there, but we are not addicted to it. We have a complete reliance upon that which is the infinite law of goodness itself. We trust in that which is spirit, that which is God, and we need not quantify it or qualify it. I don't need to explain myself. I know. And because I know, I act. That is real power. Breathe. Once again, from Reverend Dr. David Alexander and his book, Freedom from Discord, The Promise of New Thought Liberation Theology. He offers us the topics of so-called culture wars are topics of basic human dignity: gay marriage, gun control, women's health care, transgender rights, and racial equity. For a pastor, any pastor, to surrender to these topics, to the jaws of politicalization and thus avoid them for fear of alienating one side or the other, is to dishonor the basic dignity of humanity itself. Pause. When we ministers, when we parents, when we educators, when we people in general refuse to talk about basic human dignity and rights, racial equity, health care, etc., because we say, no, that's political. You said, what? Talking about women's health care is political, so we shouldn't talk about it at all? Right, we shouldn't talk about it at all because it's political. No, it's not. So when we step into that space of, oh, no, hands off. I will not, I cannot talk about that because that is political. All of life is political. If you really understand what politics are, we are not talking about partisan. We are not talking about red and blue elephants. We're not talking about that. We're talking about human rights, human dignity, and life itself. And that in and of itself is political. Politics is not about teams. Politics is about life. So he goes on to say, It is to dishonor the basic dignity of humanity itself. A spiritual theology, breathe, a spiritual theology that dares to proclaim a radically inclusive spiritual equality must stand up and speak up in a nation and in a world where basic human rights are denied to any of its people. And I would parentheses, and yes, there's a typo on there. So let's go back to when we were talking about perfectly imperfect. I would go ahead and add in denied to any of its people and any of creation, because if we are so focused on human rights, but we are still abusing animals, so focused on human rights, we're still destroying the planet, then we're still missing the point. Because if I just love people so much, then why are you burning? Why are you an arsonist who is burning down their homes? Right? You can't love and support people and humanity while destroying the planet. So I would add in there that we must speak up, we must stand up, and we must speak up in a nation and in a world where basic human rights are denied to any of its people, any of the animals, the planet itself. Failure to do so is spiritual malfeasance and theologically bankrupt behavior. Theologically bankrupt behavior that fails to live up to the principle of oneness that it claims to represent. We are political by nature because to be human and to live in the context of community is itself a political act. And if you recall from a previous Sunday, a conversation that Reverend David had with Bishop Flunder, where he said, he interviewed her and he said, what do you want a New Thought audience to know more than anything? To which Bishop Flunder said, I love your people, your teaching, and your affirmative language and view on life. You understand the power of the word, but I need you to start using it. I need you to stop praying as if there are no lives on the line. Beloved, lives are on the line every day. Use what you've got. Use what you have to heal that. That is our call to action. And this is attributed to Charlie Chaplin, who said, the trouble is you won't fight. You've given in. Think of all the power that's in the universe, moving the earth and growing the trees. That's the same power within you. If you only have the courage and the will to use it. Breathe. Living as a way of life that uses all of the science of mind and spirit, all that it offers, is to also practice a New Thought liberation theology as a way of life. Through the practice and the active embodiment of it, we are not only willing to fight, but we are far more capable of engaging in the fight. Now, I know some of you already are all, oh, why are you using the word fight? Yeah, well, acronym. We're changing it. Fight means, for the sake of our conversation, fight means focused imagineering, generating healing tactics. We are not only willing to focus our imagination, to engineer our imagination, to generate healing tactics, but we are far more capable of engaging in this focused imagineering, which generates healing tactics. Science of Mind and Spirit affords us these tactics, techniques, and tools, which gives us the ability to target our trajectory, to do so triumphantly as a team, as a collective, in order to create, in order to manifest, in order to experience a world that truly works for all. As Charlie Chaplin or whoever actually said it, do we have the courage to do so, to implement the tactics, the techniques, and the tools? Do we have the courage and the will to do it? Breathe. This week's affirmation, our declaration, I will say it first, and if it resonates with you, say it with me the second time around. As I stand in my authentic power, I actively welcome and I actively create a world that works for all. Together. As I stand in my authentic power, I actively welcome and I actively create a world that works for all. So it is. So whether you join the Thursday night study group that goes over these questions, or you do this as a solitary or even in small groups yourself with friends, journaling or whatnot, here are the questions to contemplate this week. It says for me, ask yourself, for me, what does a world that works for all look like? Number two, what are examples of my for and against? The impetus for change often, but not always, comes from some kind of discontent. What am I discontent about? And having identified that, so what is my impetus to change? What am I inspired to change? And how am I changing? So you don't like the fact that the educational system does whatever it's doing with children. What are you doing to change it? You don't like that it's so easy for people to buy a gun. What are you doing to change it? You don't like the fact that Christian nationalism is growing. What are you doing to change it? You don't like, what are you doing to change it? Number three, what makes my heart sing? What calls me to engage and what lifts me? Where do I find this? Or where could I find this in my community? Am I willing to support its creation if needed? If there is something that this community could be doing that's not fitting you, not fulfilling you, not inspiring you, because it doesn't exist right now, how can you help to support the creation of it? For example, eventually we will be doing in-person and virtual hybrid gathering. Doesn't exist right now, but you want it to? How can you help to support the creation of this live in-person or pop-up opportunity, whatever that is? Theater, performances, poetry readings, open mic night, dance, art, gallery showings, trips to New York or wherever. All of the things that we talk about doing in this community, they don't exist right now as an experience, but you want them to? How can you help to support the creation of them? Number four, in what ways am I making time to understand the choices in this upcoming election? What? What am I doing to be an effective conscious, life-affirming voter, and an advocate for a world that works for all. And lastly, what am I willing to do to shift the idea that human dignity and human rights are not something to be avoided? Human dignity and human rights are not political in the way that we claim they are, and thus avoid them. Human rights and human dignity are political, as well they should be, and they should be part of our discussions and part of our sermons and part of our education and part of our living, moving, and having our being. How might I help shift the collective consciousness regarding this new way of engaging in politics and spirituality, or engaging in politics as spirituality? Breathe. And we enter into that space of prayer, that space of infinite knowing, that space where we recognize and we realize. Often people will say things like, prayer is when we talk to God and meditation is when God talks to us. And I say neither are truly accurate. They linguistic convenience, but neither are truly accurate. Prayer is how God communicates. Meditation is how God communicates, because God is always communicating in us, through us, as us, by us, to us, around us, period. So both prayer and meditation gives us the opportunity, like looking into the mirror that hasn't been cleaned. Prayer cleans the mirror. Prayer cleans the window that I'm looking out of through the window in the kitchen that's dirty. Prayer gives me the opportunity to clean the window so that I can see out more clearly, in a more focused, more accurate manner. The dust, the dirt of life, the confusion is no longer obscuring the view of truth. So we pray in order to anchor our consciousness, to focus our power through our word in principle by stating that which is true as the whole truth and only that which is true. There is only one power and one presence, that which God is, the infinite, the eternal, the ever that is, the absolute. And as Meister Eckhart says, between that which it is and me, between God and me, there is no between, there is only that which it is. And so whatever it is, whatever we call it, it is all that there is. And that which is true about it must be true about us. So rather than focusing on the addiction to what is impossible, what is improbable, we surrender and relinquish that into the space that says, for God, all things are possible. So why wouldn't peace on earth, goodwill to all be possible? Now, my invitation in this prayer, in my meditation, in my living, moving, and having my beingness is moving it from simply being possible to being probable, and continuing with conviction and dedication to now it is inevitable. So we breathe, knowing this truth. We breathe, embodying this truth. We breathe, accepting what is ours to do with courage and conviction, with clarity and clear focus. I see where we are going. The trajectory is set, and I am willing to do what I need to do individually and collectively to get us there. The law says yes, which means all of creation is right here, right now, moving and shifting and shaping and transforming whatever needs to be moved, shifted, and transformed. That which needs to be deconstructed, destroyed, decimated is already in motion in order for that which is to now be born to take form, to take shape, to be our lived experience. It's already moving. Can you feel it? It's already clicking and shifting, and there it is. Can you feel it? Are you willing to feel it? It's already moving. It's already shifting. And so as we live, move, and have our beingness as prayer, as our amen, we stand back and marvel at the magnificent way that the universe does what it does, the magnificent way that God shows up as this answered prayer, knowing that it is already so. And so it is. And so it is. Breathe, breathe. Blessings and appreciation. As always, since it wasn't posted at the beginning, check the chat to see if we are in fact having after service fellowship. I know that one of the weeks we were in Atlanta, and so October is, so check the chat. If it says yes, we are, then I'll see you there. If you don't see anything, then we are not. And I will see you in a week or see you during the week. Blessings, much love and appreciation. Go change the world.